Welcome, new and old friends. My name is 242. 42 got us 2 stories this spooky, scary Sunday night. The first one is about a police officer catching an underage girl who has been drinking. The second is about a little girl meeting a new friend at the river, but finding out you have to be careful what you say. So, make sure you're safe before you listen to these spine-chilling stories. The policeman who thought he was escorting me home to my empty home at 17 years old. So my friend and I are underaged, a little buzzed from a party hopping all night. We roll up to the Wendy's and ditch the empty bottles of Smirnoff Ice as we wait for our food at 2 a.m. in the drive-thru. I had no idea it was illegal to be out past a certain time if you're under 18, unsupervised, and it's past 12 p.m. in Arizona. I catch a text from a friend and she asked me to get her an order and we'll meet at this intersection and eat with us. Okay, sounds chill enough. I get to the intersection and there aren't any gas stations or grocery stores. Just some creepy office buildings and a dirt lot. I stupidly picked the dirt lot to wait for my friend, who called me and is like, "Hey, I'm at the intersection, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, oh, I see you." And she's like, "Is that you with the cops behind you?" And I was like, "No." Only to discover that, in fact, cops were behind me. Luckily, the car smelled like food and not booze and cigarettes. But this cop knew I was under the influence, and I had a large bottle of rum that had already been opened that I tried desperately to hide under my stuff in my car before he knocked on my window. He's not stupid, and this is fudge in Arizona. No one gets away with a DUI in Tent City Central. This cop asks me and my friend for our parents' phone numbers. My friend's mom gets a call to come pick her up and gets a verbal lashing from the cop about being underage, past curfew, and explains the citation, so I already knew what was coming. I, however, didn't have a voicemail set up on my new Nokia Fat phone, and I refused to give my parents' house phone. Back when these were still everywhere. I told him they simply didn't have one and only a cell number, and I put it on silent as he repeatedly calls. I tell him they're probably out with friends themselves, and the cop says, "Okay." Explains the ticket to me. I think I'm going to get away scot-free when he says he's going to follow me home. I made sure to go the speed limit and not to make any errors, but I am pooping myself right now. I park my car out front of my house, and my parents' cars are in the closed garage. The house is dark. I'm like, yes, it looks like no one is home. The cop proceeds to park his car and says, "Hey, you could have broken the rules a little while getting home. I wasn't going to pull you over twice now," as he follows me to my front door. I unlock it and nervously said, "Thank you," but he, instead of ringing the doorbell or doing their famous police officer knock, follows me into my house and locks the door behind us. He's talking to me, making small conversation, checking out my living room, and I'm starting to freeze up because I'm suddenly sensing a different energy from him. He asks me where my bedroom is. He tells me to take him to it. I instead take him to my parents' room and turn on the lights. 100% thankful to see my sleepy-eyed parents shocked to see an armed, grown man behind their young daughter And he just lets out a breath and says in my ear, "You lied to me, sweetheart." And he goes back into police mode, telling my parents that he found me out at an illegal time and that I'll need to pay a fine and attend a class. It was so embarrassing because I was 18 by the time I had to take the class with a bunch of 12 to 14-year-olds. Anyway, I never told anyone until now about the comments he made to me, but my dad did ask him why he was in our house. I told him I didn't understand that either. He never read me any rights, he just followed me home. Before leaving, he says, "That's a nice house phone you have right there, like new and shiny," as the last thing he tells me before letting me go. I can't help but think back to that night and think about what would have happened if I had bad parents who weren't home or were out of town. I know there are good cops out there. I personally know some. I go back and forth at being freaked out and, okay, maybe he was just being thorough. The comments are what have stuck with me though, and that sinking gut feeling. I'm interested in hearing your opinions. I'm convinced she tried to drown me. This happened when I was still a child, so some of the details are pretty hazy, like my exact age when this happened. Also, English is not my first language, so apologies in advance for any mistakes. Not far from where I lived as a child, there is this place where one of the local rivers cascades over an old weir. And it's really a beautiful spot to bathe and swim during the summer. The water upstream from the weir is nice and calm. The river has lots of fish and lots of pretty flowers on the riverbanks. And there's even a small kiosk and a place where you can rent paddle boats. If the weather is nice, there are usually lots of people of all ages picnicking, sunbathing, swimming, fishing, and just hanging out. Families, couples, teenagers, seniors, everyone likes to go there. When I was a kid, my mom would take me there pretty often, and it was always a lot of fun. Usually, I wanted to play in the water for hours, and my mom would quickly retire to our picnic blanket and pick up a book. I could already swim fairly well by the age of 6, but she still watched me closely when I was younger. So I would estimate that I was at least 8 when this happened, but no older than 11. It was a beautiful warm summer day at the river. My mom was reading her book and letting me explore the area and go swimming on my own. As was normal on days like these, there's a lot of people, and especially a lot of teenagers up at the crest of the weir, where most people enter the water. I'm afraid I don't remember the details of how it happened, but I sort of befriended one of the teenage girls there. She was there on her own, and since I was still really young, I thought she was so mature and cool. Basically, just for being an older girl who was doing her things on her own. No idea how old she really was, as everyone who is older than you at that age is just old. But looking back, I would guess between 14 and 16. She was really nice to me and seemed to enjoy hanging out with me, and I got the feeling like I had an older sister for a while, which was nice. We spent some time exploring the riverbanks, diving, watching fish, and chasing each other around. At one point, we ended up at a spot where the water was about chest high for my friend and neck high for me, close to a group of other teenage girls who were about the same age as my new friend. I noticed one of them seemed to be really reluctant to get into the water and complained that it was freezing. I was still a pretty loudmouth and brash child at the time, a far cry from how I am now, and also very proud of my clearly superior swimming skills. So I turned to my friend and said something pretty harmless about the girl being a big wuss or something like that. I wasn't loud, but she heard. Her head snapped up and she immediately jumped into the water and came at me, shouting,
"What did you say? What did you say about me?"
I was freaking out right away because her reaction was so sudden and she seemed so enraged in a way that was disproportionate to what I had said. I opened my mouth to defend myself somehow and maybe de-escalate, but before I even knew what was happening, she had grabbed me and pushed me underwater. I struggled for a moment and she let me come up again. I think I heard my friend protest in the background, but I was mostly concerned with this girl who still had a death grip on both of my shoulders. She stared at me with a look that made me really uncomfortable, like she was fighting with herself or trying to control herself.
"What did you say to me?"
she screamed at me. Scared as I was, I resented how helpless I felt and that I was being humiliated in front of this cool girl I had befriended. So I resolved not to show any weakness. You know, the obnoxious thing some kids do when someone tells them off, and they just start giggling and laughing, like they're laughing at you because they don't want anyone to see that they feel bad. I did that. I laughed right in her face, and right away she forced me underwater again and held me down for quite a moment longer than the first time. When she let me come up again, she screamed right in my face,
"You think this is funny? You like that? You want to laugh at me, you little witch?"
I was coughing up water by this point and drooling all over myself, but I didn't know what else to do or say to make her stop. The only thought I had left in my head was I couldn't show weakness. So I laughed at her again, and I may or may not have made another remark to the effect that, unlike her, I don't mind a little water. I'm not sure anymore. What I distinctly remember, and will remember forever, is her eyes in that moment. It's hard to describe, but the closest I can get is by telling you that something seemed to leave her eyes. Some spark, or whatever you want to call it, that normal, sane people have, just flickered and went out. It suddenly looked like her eyes were two pieces of hard, painted glass stuck in her face, and there was nothing behind them. I would have apologized then and begged her just to leave me alone, but it was too late. She grabbed me by the throat, by the hair, and pushed me underwater again. I struggled as hard as I could, swirling up mud from the riverbed, grabbing at pebbles, but it didn't help. I thought, surely she will let me up in a moment. She just wants to scare me really bad. But I was running out of air quickly, and her grip on my throat did not ease up even a little bit. I tried scratching at her arms, but I was starting to lose any sense of where up or down was and what I was grabbing at. When I opened my eyes, everything was just a muddy brown and full of bubbles. I realized I was going to drown right here. I was actually being killed by a complete stranger while the sun was shining peacefully. And we were surrounded by happy families, and nobody realized what was happening. I'm grateful I don't remember fully what it felt like. When I try to think back to that moment, I just get this feeling of utter helplessness and loneliness. And then suddenly, I was breathing air again. I was completely disorientated, coughing and puking up water, and there was a lot of shouting around me. My friend was holding me above water, shouting in the direction of the group of girls who were forcefully leading my attacker away, while she was screaming at me and my friend, while her friends were screaming at her. Just a lot of noise in general, and I had no recollection of what anyone was saying. I was busy enjoying air again. After I had calmed down somewhat, my new friend apologized for stepping in so late, saying she and the other girls took a moment to process what was actually happening before they started to try to pull my attacker off me. It took all of their efforts combined to get her to let me go. I was deeply, deeply shaken because I was entirely sure she had attempted to murder me then and there. I just knew from the look in her eyes. But still trying to save face for my friend, I tried to laugh it off. I did a lousy job, because I was shivering all over and my voice was trembling. I don't know if my friend had realized at any point how serious the situation actually was, or if she thought she was just trying to stop some bullying. But whatever she thought, she bought me an ice cream and rented us a paddle boat to cheer me up. And we watched some birds. And I'm grateful to her for that, and for saving my life. But to be really honest, my day was kinda ruined. I never saw my attacker or the nice teenage girl again. And I said nothing to my mom because I was so embarrassed about what had happened. But that, and some other things that happened to me later, cost me most of my confident attitude I had as a child. And I'm very shy and cautious person nowadays. So, girl who is willing to murder children over some harmless teasing, let's never meet again, please. I hope you enjoyed these 2 stories tonight. 42 found us a couple of good ones, I think. I'm also trying something different, so please tell me what you think. There is a bonus video with my opinions on these stories. The link will be in the description as well as in the eye icon, so please check them out. If you liked this video, then I want you to hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button and turn that bell to all notifications. I hope to see you this Thursday with my day videos. 2 has gone to the subreddit Am I the Butthole and looking for stories for me. With that though, my friends, I hope you have a good night.